What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of H-Town Hats and Stats. I am your host, D-Lock. You guys know me from over on Instagram and TikTok at H-Town Hats and Stats. To get things started today, today's hat is the 2000 to 2012 home on-field fitted for the Astros. Well, it looks like the sports world peaked in Houston on hump day, and it was downhill for the Astros and Texans after that. So with that being said, let's roll right into our H-Town scoreboard. Things look great early for the Astros this week as they would get started with a 3-game sweep of the Texas Rangers, starting with a 6-3 victory on Monday night. Zach Cole would hit his first Dyken Park home run of his career after getting his first home run last weekend with the Astros in Atlanta. They would follow that up with a 6-5 victory. This one was a bit of a nail-biter as Enyel De Los Santos would give up some runs in the 8th inning to make it a 1-run game, but Brian Abreu would come in and pick up the 4-out save to get his 7th save of the season. Finally, on Wednesday, to complete the sweep, the Astros would win 5-2. Jose Altuve's home run in the 3rd inning would be the difference in this one. But after an off day, it was, like I said in the beginning, all downhill from there, as the Astros would be swept by the Seattle Mariners in a division matchup that will likely cost them the division and could cost them a postseason berth for the first time since 2016. On Friday, it was a 4-0 defeat where the Mariners would hit 4 solo home runs and the Astros offense would only be able to muster up 3 hits on the night. Followed that on Saturday, they would lose 6-4. They would go down 6-0 going into the 7th inning. Jeremy Pena would hit a grand slam in the 7th inning to make it 6-4, but that was likely our last home start for the Astros for Framber Valdez. He'll probably make one more start this week as they push to get into the playoffs, but that could be his last home start, as the Astros will likely have to go on the road in a wild card series if they do, in fact, make the postseason. And then lastly, tonight, it just was not Jason Alexander's night. On the last day of summer, the summer of George finally came to an end, where Alexander would go 1 1/3 innings pitched, giving up 7 hits and 7 runs in a 7-3 Astros loss. They would have a few chances to fight back later, but it was not enough. Zach Cole would get his 3rd home run in a little over a week for the Astros, but again, it was not enough as they would be swept by the Mariners. As for the Texans, things were looking kind of bleak going into this one, and now there are a lot more question marks as the Texans would lose 17-10 on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. 2 interceptions by C.J. Stroud and a very costly late game Nico Collins fumble would give the Jags the 7-point victory. So in this one, not a great week for the Astros or the Texans, as the Texans fall to 0-3 and the Astros are sitting currently outside of the American League playoff picture due to tiebreakers and all kinds of scenarios right now. But let's kind of cheer things up just a little bit and take a look at our players of the week and give them a tip of the cap. All right, this might be our shortest tip of the cap segment, especially when it comes to Houston athletes this week not doing too much. Like I said earlier, on Saturday night, Jeremy Pena would hit a grand slam against the Seattle Mariners. This is his first career grand slam, and for that, I believe that can give him probably the biggest ups from anyone other than maybe Zach Cole in the Astros lineup. So Jeremy Pena, for your first career grand slam, you, sir, get a tip of the cap. That does it for our tip of the cap for Houston athletes this week. But as a sports fan myself, I have to recognize greatness when I see it, or, a great season when I see it. So an Astros opponent is actually going to get a tip of the cap this week in Cal Raleigh, the catcher for the Seattle Mariners. Hit his 57th home run on Saturday night. He would follow that up with his 58th on Sunday night. But his 57th home run on Saturday night would set a new franchise record for the Seattle Mariners, passing one of baseball's all-time greats in Ken Griffey Jr., who hit 56 for the Mariners. So Cal Raleigh for your 57th home run, and this is also a record for switch hitters that he passed Joe DiMaggio earlier in the week for that title. But passing Ken Griffey Jr. in any kind of record, you, sir, get a tip of the cap. That does it for that segment. And like I said, there was quite a bit of bad this week. So with that being said, let's roll right into the dunce of the week. I'm not sure if that's circus music or if that's just the Texans team plane landing back in Houston after their third straight defeat. That's right, our dunce of the week this time will be getting off of that plane. And it's actually not just one person this time. I'm going to have to give our dunce of the week this week, to the Texans coaching staff from top to bottom, head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and all the staff anywhere in between all of those. They have failed this team so far, whether it be the offensive line, some of the defensive mistakes, not as many defensive mistakes. I mean, this defense is still yet to give up more than 20 points in a game, but there's certain things that obviously can be worked on. I mean, you're 0-3. There's a lot that needs to be worked on. But the offensive side of the ball is more where we're going to focus this, but I'm going to give it to the coaching staff as a whole because the team has just failed completely. There's talent on this roster, and they have failed them so far with their coaching. And when you look at there's discipline issues. There has to be discipline issues. Yeah, the penalties have kind of gone down, and kind of maybe stayed steady at a little bit of a normal pace these last 2 weeks. But 24 total penalties, 11 in week 1, 6 in week 2, and then another 7 in today's game, in Sunday's game against the Jaguars. So 24 total penalties for the Texans. And then, like I said, we're going to look at the offensive side of the ball on this one, as they're just not using any of these rookies. They invested a second, third, and fourth round pick on weapons for CJ Stroud and for this offense to succeed. Jaden Higgins so far only has 5 targets on the season. He has 4 catches for 65 yards. He's had a couple big plays, nothing great so far, but just 5 targets. That means they're not getting any routes run specifically for him or plays designed specifically for him, which leads us into our next one as well, as Jalen Knoll. They have set him up to succeed with Braxton Berrios being out 3 straight weeks, but in the punt return game. But again, on offense, 3 targets, 2 catches for 11 yards. A couple screen in Sunday's game, and then he's had 1 other catch this season, but only 3 targets. Again, you have to get these guys some targets, as well as Woody Marks. A total of 12 carries for 44 yards. Yeah, it's not groundbreaking when it comes to his yardage, but I mean, he looks like he could be a back that could get stronger as the game goes on, and especially in the run game. 3 targets, in the passing game. 3 targets through the air. He has 2 catches for a total of 46 yards. He has a 9-yard catch and a 37-yard catch. They have to develop more plays for all 3 of these players, even their bigger players. Yeah, Nico Collins had a little bit better of a day today, or on Sunday against the Jaguars, but it has to get better. And this coaching staff has to get better. So for that, and the way they've performed so far this year, our Texans coaching staff is our dunce of the week. So let's take a look at the news recap, take a look at the AL West standings, as well as the American League wildcard standings and the AFC South. What happened there on Sunday? Okay, I know this isn't what everybody expected for the news recap this week. It is what we've been doing with the standings updates, but these are not standings updates that any Astros or Texan fan wanted to see this week. Starting first in the AL West, this was a pivotal series going against Seattle this weekend, tied at 5 games apiece going into Friday night's game. The Mariners now own an 8-5 series record against the Astros this year, which gives them the tiebreaker if by some chance the Astros are able to catch them going into the playoffs. The Astros will need to win the division outright by a game and things are looking a little bleak there. But the Mariners are now 87-69, while the Astros are 84-72. So the Astros are 3 games back. The Mariners' magic number to clinch the division is down to 3. Any combination of Mariners wins and Astros losses equaling 3 will give the Mariners their first division title since 2001, when they set the all-time Major League wins record with 116. Now we have to start looking at the American League wild card. Again, Astros 84-72. The Cleveland Guardians, who are on an absolute tear right now, they are also 84-72. The only issue is the Astros are the ones looking up at everyone else because they do not own any tiebreakers against anyone except the Rangers, who have completely fallen apart in the last week. The Guardians, old habits are hard to break when it comes to team names. The Cleveland Guardians at 84-72, they hold a 4-2 game lead over, or a season series victory over the Astros, giving them the tiebreaker. So the Astros once again will need to finish 1 game better than the Guardians to get that final wildcard spot, which right now would actually mean a trip to Detroit, as Seattle has jumped into the 2 seed in the American League. And that wraps up our Astros standings, for the week. Hopefully things will look a lot better when I'm recording next Sunday. As for the AFC South, like I said, the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Texans 17-10 on Sunday. Within the division, there was another matchup with the other 2 teams. The Tennessee Titans hosted the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts continue to roll, moving to 3-0 on the season. They defeat the Titans 41-20. Daniel Jones continues his resurgence, going 18 of 25 for 228 yards and a touchdown through the air, adding 4 more rushes for 27 yards on the ground as well. But the story of the day in this one was Jonathan Taylor, who would have 17 carries for 102 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. The Colts look like they could be doing things kind of like what the Giants did a few years ago, when Daniel Jones was the quarterback for them. Saquon Barkley kind of lead the team, and Daniel Jones just not mess things up. Except he actually looks like he might even be better than he was that season. As for the Titans, number 1 overall pick Cam Ward, he would go 23 of 38 in this one for 219 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. So yeah, now the AFC South standings look like this: Colts at 3-0, Jaguars at 2-1, and the Texans and Titans both fighting out the bottom of the division at 0-3. But let's put that entire week that we just had behind us and take a look ahead at what we've got coming up in a very important week for the Astros, as well as hopefully getting the Texans back on track. All right, in the not so distant future, the Astros will have a very important series, 2 very important series coming up, but we're also going to look ahead at other teams that the Astros will need to scoreboard watch for the week. But let's start with the Texans. Like I said, coming into the week, they will be 0-3. They will host the Tennessee Titans. Somehow, the Texans are 7-point favorites. Yes, it is a home game. Yes, the Titans are bad, but right now, the Texans are playing just as bad. The Texans will be a 7-point favorite going into this game against the Titans this coming Sunday, September 28th at noon at home at NRG Stadium. Another football game will be played for a Houston team this week, but it won't be in Houston. For the first time this year, the Houston Cougars football team will have a true road game where they will leave the city of Houston, heading up to Corvallis, Oregon, to play the Oregon State Beavers. U of H coming in at 3-0. They will head up, and that is a Friday night game at 9:30. So instead of cracking a few cold ones when you get home and get off of work on Friday, maybe get an energy drink, maybe brew you a pot of coffee, start drinking those beers a little bit later, as you'll want to watch Connor Wegman lead this Cougar team into battle against the Oregon State Beavers. Again, that is 9:30 on Friday night for the Coogs. All right, now let's get to the nitty-gritty of the Astros. Like I said, they have two very important series. The two bottom teams of the American League West are the only two teams remaining on the Astros schedule. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they will be in Sacramento facing off against the Athletics. Those games will start at 9:05, 9:05, and then an afternoon game on Thursday at 2:35. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they will head down to Anaheim to take on the Angels, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I'm not sure if they still use that moniker, but the Los Angeles Angels will host the Astros in the final series of the 2025 season. Those games will get started at 8:38, 8:38, and 2:07. All games in Major League Baseball will be played at that time on Sunday, so there will be a little bit of scoreboard watching. Hopefully there'll be some actual scoreboard watching needed in that one. As for the Seattle Mariners, who, like I said, do hold the 3-game lead over the Astros, they head back home for their final two series of the season, and it is a doozy of a week for them as they will go from one end of the spectrum to the other, hosting the Colorado Rockies on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, before hosting the Los Angeles Dodgers with a lot on the line for them as well on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And like I said, the Cleveland Guardians are tied with the Astros for the final wild card spot going into the final week of the season. They will host the Detroit Tigers on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which will look at their final series as well, because whoever wins the first game of that series will need to sweep that series to help out the Astros when it comes to that final wild card spot, so that like I said, the Guardians are flying up the standings currently, and they're looking to win the American League Central. So if they take game one on Tuesday, it'd be great for them to sweep. If the Tigers win game one on Tuesday, it would be awesome if they could sweep. The Guardians will finish with 3 games against the Rangers. Excuse me. So Astros fans might actually have to be Rangers fans on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday while the Astros play in Los Angeles. As for the Tigers, they will finish on the road as well at Boston Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So there's going to be a lot of games. If you have MLB TV, this is a great week to pull up all your screens and watch multiple baseball games at a time. Again, this is going to be a late week for a lot of Astros baseball and Cougar football. So those 9 o'clock games, 8:30 games for the Astros. It's going to be a long week, but this could be fun. This could be really fun. We haven't had a true what are we going to do moment with the Astros anytime recently. So hopefully everything will look good come next Sunday. Next Sunday, that is. All right, guys, it is time to wrap things up and put on our thinking cap. Oh no, I forgot my thinking cap. That's all right. It's just like all the other Houston teams this week. They forgot how to baseball, forgot how to football. I forgot my thinking cap. That's all right. Let's take a look back at last week's clues and see how well you guys did. There were only 2 clues last week. They win everywhere, and they rolled into Houston off of a green wave. For those of you that have been keeping up with the undefeated football team, of course I'm talking about head coach Willie Fritz. Coming in after coaching the Tulane Green Wave these last few years, he has been a winner everywhere he's been, whether it be Tulane or Sam Houston State or any of the other various stops that he has been at. He has been a great coach. All right, so now in the comments, I want you guys to listen closely to these clues and leave me who you think this week's thinking cap participant or answer is. All right, first clue, Houston felt like home. Houston felt like home. They repossessed an admiral. This one should give it to most Houston fans. They repossessed an admiral. And lastly, they didn't look good in purple. Most of us don't, but they especially did not look good in purple. So leave it down in the comments and let me know who you think this week's thinking cap answer is. And of course, you guys can follow me over on Instagram and TikTok at H-Town Hats and Stats. I want to thank you guys for sticking with us over here on the YouTube channel, as well as over on all of the other various social media platforms. And like I say every week, even as hard as it is sometimes, go Astros, go Texans, go Rockets, and go Coogs. Appreciate it, guys. Peace.